Welcome to the podcast series of the DIEM Doctoral Network, a EU-funded project studying distributed ledger technology, innovation and ecosystem management, where throughout this podcast series we are going to interview various stakeholders like doctoral candidates and industry experts regarding distributed ledger technology. Today we're recording the first episode of the podcast here at the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, and we're excited to give you more insights into what our PhD students or doctoral candidates are working on. I'm here with Ard-Pieter, who is a dear colleague of mine and a great expert on ecosystems. Welcome, Ard-Pieter.
Thank you, Nina.
Ard-Pieter, maybe you can quickly introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we can start right off with some more interesting questions on ecosystems, why they matter, what they are, and how they matter for blockchain.
Okay. Yeah, so I work here at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam for 2 days a week. And I do a lot of my research in the area of collaboration in general and ecosystems in particular, and within that field also digital ecosystems. And next to that I also work in practice as a consultant, so I help companies with strategy and organization questions, and occasionally also setting up digital ecosystems.
Nice, so you're both an academic
and
industry expert, consultant, so you're actually helping people understanding what you study.
Yeah.
So that's perfect for us at DIEM, of course, where we would like to transfer or translate the findings into practice.
Yeah, I also think that's the interesting part of the DIEM project, that it's not purely academic or not only practice, but it tries to bridge the two areas, and I think that's very necessary because in academia we're sometimes too theoretical.
Yes,
and in practice we sometimes don't reflect enough about what we're doing. So I hope that in DIEM we can have that combination, and that will be better for both business and academia.
Yeah, that would be great, of course, yes. But so you're an expert in ecosystems. What does that mean? What are ecosystems?
Yeah, I think when most people hear the word ecosystem, they will think about ecosystems in nature. So it's kind of a metaphor. We also have ecosystems in business. And the idea behind it is that we can no longer function on our own as an organization. We need other partners to innovate. Mm-hmm. There's so much knowledge out there, there's so much dynamics also in the business environment, that as a company you cannot cope on your own. You need other partners around you, and that's what's called the ecosystem. So those are partners that you collaborate and sometimes also compete with, that help you to develop new innovations and new value propositions for your clients.
Okay, so that firms really build a network among each other, but even broader than this, because it's the whole...
Yeah, it's, that immediately you come to an interesting question, that is, what are we talking about? Because the way I just defined it is still, there's so many ways you can go. Mm-hmm. And that's also, I think, in practice a bit the confusion. Everybody calls everything an ecosystem nowadays. But if you boil it down, there are maybe 3 or 4 different types. And one type is an innovation ecosystem.
Okay.
And that's where 4 or 5 parties, or maybe 10, but a smaller group of partners come together to deliver one value proposition. So one product or service to a company or an industry, a market segment. So that's more a smaller scale ecosystem. Mm-hmm. There are also digital ecosystems, I think, which we all know, platforms like Facebook, Google, there a lot of partners collaborate on that platform. Amazon is another example. And you as a customer can use apps that are available on that platform, or you can use that platform for communication. But usually there are thousands and thousands of companies involved in, active on those platforms.
Of course, yeah.
And a third way of looking at it is saying, well, we also have regional ecosystems. And so there may be sets of entrepreneurs working together in a certain area, like in Silicon Valley is a famous example, where there are entrepreneurs, also bigger companies that invest in startups, but also specialized lawyers that support the creation of new companies, or venture capitalists, and together they form the regional ecosystem.
Okay, so yes, I think Silicon Valley is something that we've all heard of, or most of us, I think, have heard of.
Yeah, and there are more examples here in the Netherlands. It doesn't have to be high tech. In the Netherlands, we have the cut flower industry, for example,
Yeah.
that's concentrated in a very small area of the Netherlands, where we grow a lot of flowers, and we have about 90% of the world market in cut flowers. But that's also an ecosystem with specialized suppliers that supply greenhouses, with people who research new varieties of plants, and that's also an example of a regional ecosystem.
It's actually very interesting because I never thought about it like that. It's true, because you have more than just partner or firm A and firm B, but they actually need to find ways to work together while still competing also. So I think that's also a big issue maybe, or concern in ecosystems, of course. But you mentioned different types of ecosystems, and looking at the DIEM project, of course, host of this podcast, essentially, it's about blockchain. And I think I can imagine how blockchain could help within these ecosystems, but I'm not sure. So maybe you can explain a little bit, what would be the link from ecosystem to blockchain, essentially?
Yeah, sure. Well, I already mentioned the digital ecosystems, and digital ecosystems, they're often centered around a platform technology. And the platform traditionally was owned by the bigger organizations like Google and Facebook. Yeah. But blockchain is essentially also a platform technology. So you can build a lot of different applications on blockchain. And so you can have, of course, Bitcoin built on blockchain. But there are also a lot of companies that do work in the supply chain that they build on blockchain. Mm-hmm. You can even trace goods right back to the source of origin, so that you can use a blockchain to report about the sustainability of the products that you bring to the market. And so blockchain is a platform technology, and around that, all kinds of other organizations build their applications. Mm-hmm. And that together is the blockchain ecosystem.
Okay, so that's how it would link. But would it also be possible, so you say the blockchain ecosystem, what if only one of the firms in the ecosystem might be interested in using blockchain? How would that work? Would that work?
Yeah, maybe that wouldn't be much different from an individual client buying something at Amazon. Huh? Mm-hmm. The question is, what are you going to do internally with the blockchain then? Huh? There is an example. There's Haier, which is a Chinese manufacturer of refrigerators and those kind of things, all kinds of stuff you use in the house. And they use blockchain internally between the different micro enterprises they have in their organization. They're split up amongst very small units, and they supply each other with materials.
So they essentially use it in their organizational
setup. They use it in their organizational
already.
setup. So then you have one organization that uses it only internally.
Yeah.
But most applications, of course, will be across boundaries. So they will be in the ecosystem between buyers and suppliers, or people wanting to trade in Bitcoin. So you will usually have a lot of parties collaborating on the blockchain. You can also have smaller groups, 5 companies that maybe have a lot of business together that put some of their activities on the blockchain.
Maybe enhance efficiencies, trust between partners. We said already, competition, collaboration. Yeah. It's a big issue, of course, also with trust. So how you can get maybe around that or manage that, of course.
Yeah, and that's where the blockchain is valuable. It makes operation more efficient. So the example of Haier, the internal use, you have all the internal transactions between those companies would have to go via a central administration in the old-fashioned way. It would be impossible. Mm-hmm. And it's the same in a supply chain. But in a supply chain, you may also not be quite sure what you're buying. Your supplier may say, okay, I'm going to deliver this product to you, but are you sure you're getting it? Is it on the right quality level? And all the documentation around it, certainly if you trade internationally across borders, all the custom formalities, all those kind of things. It's a huge paperwork, but you can also put that on the blockchain and make it much easier and reduce all the bureaucratic handling that you have to do and make it traceable. Yeah,
and especially I think this could really lower a lot of the concerns that there are, for example, within collaboration alliances in terms of trust, in terms of efficiencies, in terms of culture barriers, for example. So I think that could
and
really
that's
help.
certainly also if you look at sustainability. So I may say, okay, I buy some wood from a supplier, and the supplier can tell me, yeah, no, this was all sustainably grown. And then maybe it turns out it was, it comes out of the Amazon rainforest and was taken there illegally. Well, the blockchain, if you really organize it to the source of origin, you can actually see in the blockchain whether it comes out of the rainforest or not, for example. And your supplier can tell you all kinds of things, but the blockchain will show you the facts.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think the DIEM project, the doctoral candidates that we have, they can offer on all these aspects actually quite some interesting insights. So knowing the projects, sustainability is one of the large concerns or components, of course, but also how to implement, how to use blockchain within strategic decision making and so on. So that's, I think, very relevant as a general context, the ecosystems.
Yeah, and also I think now we're just talking about making existing situations more efficient. But obviously also completely new functionality. You already see that with Bitcoin and those type of currencies, which are things we wouldn't have thought of a couple of years ago. But there are many new business models and new applications we can still think of. And I think those are also very interesting in the DIEM project to explore.
Certainly. But I do think we have to always be aware and keep in mind it's an ecosystem. It's usually not one individual person, firm, but they're always connected with others, and that means decision making has an impact, and we should see what that means in terms of
and that also relates to how do we govern the blockchain. So who do we allow in? Who is going to get access to the information on the blockchain? Because often we think everything is open and flexible, but in reality things are never open because there are competitive issues or security issues or privacy issues that we also have to deal with on the blockchain. So there we also need to think about what type of rights do we give different people to transact or to develop a certain blockchain solution that we have.
So I do think blockchain is very interesting in the ecosystem context. It very much can help to govern, manage, but also improve or enhance efficiencies. Communication potentially, and indeed traceability, for example. So that's very, very interesting.
And it will help, I think, to grow the ecosystem as well, because it's an efficient way of communicating. So if you're in an ecosystem and now you're kind of limited in how many partners you can deal with, because you only have so much bandwidth as a manager, you can only manage 10 partners or something like that. With the blockchain, maybe you can manage 20 or even more. And then, of course, the efficiency in the entire ecosystem will only increase. So it's not only interesting to see what kind of ecosystems develop around the blockchain, but also how ecosystems can benefit from the blockchain by including more and more partners over time.
So I'm curious what our PhD students or doctoral candidates will actually tell us in a couple of years from now, and how far what we think will happen or how it can help, whether this is also part of their research findings or not. That's
I'm sure it's going to be an exciting time. I have 2 PhDs in the DIEM project, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what we're going to find. And also certainly what we're going to find across Europe, because this is, of course, a European consortium. I think also in terms of knowledge exchange that we're going to have is going to be, I think, very exciting and open up a completely new area of research for us.
I agree. And with that, I think we can conclude the interview. And I would like to thank you very, very much for your time and for your insights and for the interesting conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Nina.